Hi everyone, so this is a highly anticipated video. I'm going to show you how I sand and assemble my own dolls. As you can see, I use different sand sponges that comes with the kit. In this case, they're all like leftovers I have, but if you purchase a kit, you get the whole pack complete and not like cut off. Here are the 4 sand sponges I use. As you can see, all of them have different grades, so you will get a different finish, and I'm going to show you which ones you use for what parts, or at least this is my process. So I like to do things in different parts. I like to start with the torso parts. I then do like maybe the hands and the ears and the face, and then I do the lower torso. So as you can see right now, I'm using like the thicker, more great one to go inside the joints or where their supports were. As you can see, there's different holes in some pieces, and those we want to lay as flat as possible. It's really hard to make them completely flat. I would recommend to not like worry too much for the ones that are inside the joints, because those are not going to be visible anyway, um, and those are going to be covered by hot glue. Basically what I'm saying is that what you really have to worry is to get the inside of the joints smooth without anything that could like potentially create lines and create friction between the two parts being connected, and from the outside ones to keep them as flat as possible. So now that I'm done with that one, I get the second grid one, and I do exactly the same thing. Basically what I'm trying to do is to get things even more smooth, try to get things as spread as possible for the next sandy sponge I will use, to try to remove all those lines that the previous sponge may have caused. Basically we're prepping everything for basically what would be the final process or the final step of the sanding process. So now that we're done with that sponge, I like to use this like block to create kind of like a more smooth finish and a more straight finish to all the joints that are going to be connected later. As you can see, I'm just basically not only sanding over what I just sanded, but trying to make those surfaces as straight as possible, just in case in the printing process there were some pixels that overlapped or anything that could have possibly happened during that process. And as a last step, I get this green sponge that's like the less abrasive one, that's going to give me a pretty smooth and matte finish for all the pieces. With this sponge I basically go all the way to everything, to the surface, to the inside that I just sanded, as best as possible. I try to get it as smooth as possible. I try to get it matte. I don't really sand in a specific way. I try to go straight across or straight up or whatever. There's a lot of people that likes to sand in circular motions. to be honest, I don't have the patience to do that. So I just go with the flow. I just go how I think it's going to look. I like to be checking in, just like trying to remove the sand dust to see if everything is smooth. Personally, I like to sand with the dry sponge because I feel like it gives me a more objective way to see how it's going to be the finish. Because I feel like with wet sanding, I'm not able to see how things are really going until the piece dried up. Of course, this is something really personal. This is just how you like to do it. This is just the way I really like to do it. But of course, if you have a different way, that's completely okay. The good thing about this hobby is that everyone does things differently and we all are able to learn from different experiences and different perspectives of things. So if you have a different way to sand, just let me know. I would love to hear about that. We are always able to grow and to learn and to perfect our techniques. But yeah, basically this is just how I do it and how it works for me. Something I will also like to point out is the fact that this process is extremely exhausting. So if you need to take breaks in between parts, in between different sanding sponges, do it. I do it myself because I get a lot of back pain and finger pain. It's really hard to sand such small pieces sometimes. So feel free to take your time. You don't have to do it on a single day or a single morning. I'm sure that's going to really affect positive in how you're going to end the love result on the dough. So as you can see, the next thing I'm going to do is the actual head, the head cap, the hands and the ears. I'm basically doing the same thing, the same process. Everywhere you can see where supports were, for example, the flat face of the head cap, the flat face of the head, behind the ears of the head, all of that I'm going to sand off with the thicker sanding sponge. So basically I'm just doing the exact same process. Where the hands connect, I'm going to sand that way, as you can see. Sometimes you can find some leftover from the supports or some pieces that just need to be a little bit more shaved down. You can get a toothpick or the ends of scissors and quickly and smoothly remove them. As you can see, the process is the exact same as before. I'm just going to cut the other sponge and go over where I just sanded to get an even smoother finish for the last sanding sponge I will use. As you can see, the way I sand is that I like to cut small squares depending on how big the pieces are, just so I know how much sponge I'm actually using so I don't run off of it. And just as before, I get this thick sponge to go over where I sanded and to get the connect of the joints as smooth as possible and as straight as possible, just so they look as good as possible too. Please make sure to see how things are connecting, like for example the head with the head cap, in case you need to sand a little bit more with the thicker sand sponge. And of course, just like before, we're going to use the green one. That's the one that's more smooth, to go over every part, every crevice as we can, and try to check in how things are looking, if it's looking matte, if it's looking smooth, if you cannot see any lines or whatever, in case you need to go over. I find the head the most difficult to sand because there's some creases that you cannot reach unless you like really snuggle the sanding sponge between your fingers, like under the nose or under the chin or the eyelids or the smile. Those are parts that sometimes are hard to sand, so I would recommend you to just be checking how things are turning out in case you need to re-sand those parts. So I think you can basically see how happy I am that finally the process is going to end. I'm just going to sand the last pieces. That's basically the lower torso. I'm just going to do the same thing as before. On every part you see that supports were in touch, you just use the thicker one, then you use the other thicker one, then you use the big block, and then you end up with the green one. I want to point out that if the color is really dark, you will probably have to take one step more, and that's using a magic eraser and do the same thing with all the pieces. This really helps in really dark colors for the lines to not be shown, and even if you want an even smoother finish, you can do that with all the pieces. I just don't see the point on doing it in pieces that you cannot see any standing lines. This whole process took me around 3 hours. I'm of course not counting the breaks, not counting everything I was doing in between. I divided this process in 2 days because my back and my hands get super sour and start to kind of hurt a little bit. So I hope you learned something from this video. In the next one, I will show you how I cleaned, how I recure the pieces, how I clean them afterwards, how I hot glue them, and how I assemble them with the elastics. Hopefully the next video is way shorter than this. I just wanted to show you guys everything that I was doing, just in case you could see any tips or any ways I grab the pieces or whatever. So hope you like this video. Just remember, this is not only for my own dolls. If you're a 3D printed artist and you want to know how to get your pieces looking great, you can of course keep following this tutorial. Hope you liked it and see you in the next video. Bye.